reading from the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, the 17th chapter, the 15th verse. But first we will start with the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Get the right one, Apaskachasma. Okay, everybody has the page? Should be the 693. And start something like this. Anudavega Karam Vakyam Satyam Priya Hitam Cha Yat Svadhyayabhyasanam Jaiva Van. Is there more light here? I can't see this. Van Mayam Tapa Uchate Anudavega Karam Vakyam Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat Svadya Yayabhyasyanam Chaiva Vanmayam Tapa Uchate Anudavega Karam, not agitating. Vakyam, words. Satyam, truthful. Priya, dear. Hitam, beneficial. Cha, also. Yat, which. Svadhyaya, a Vedic study. Abhyasanam, practice. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Vakmayam, of the voice. Tapa, austerity. Uchate is said to be. So we'll read the verse, but this verse is not for everybody. This verse is only for certain kinds of people. This verse is only for people who talk to other people. Anybody here who never talks to anybody? Everybody here talks to other people. Okay, just wanted to clarify this. All right. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful. Remember these, they'll be on the test later. Truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. So we'll do it all together. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others. And also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students. But such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students, if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. The process of speaking in spiritual circles is to say something upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from the scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. That is called the penance of speech. So many things are discussed here as far as speech. And we see that there are some parameters to speak in, and we see that we have to apply these parameters differently according to the audience that we're speaking in. And then we have to understand who the audience is and what we are trying to accomplish with the audience. So we are talking about speech and language. Sometimes things mean different things in different languages. So we have to understand the different languages. We have two kinds of language. One is called the Sanskrit. The Sanskrit means like complete regulation and order. In the Sanskrit, it has been designed since eternity, but since thousands of years, it doesn't change what the meaning is, and the words don't change. In India, they also have another kind of language where it changes over time and people make their own vocabulary and add and subtract their words. What is that language? What is that kind of language called? What? Not slang, maybe not slang, but in India, what do you call that? What? No, there's an Indian term for it. Sanskrit is the well-ordered language, and the language which develops on its own is called what? Not just Hindi. No, Devanagari is the script that we use for Sanskrit and for Hindi. Some of you people are Indians, right? You have to know this term. Sanskrit is the well-ordered language where nothing changes. And what is the language where it comes of its own? What? No, it's a type. Prakrit. Yes. You heard this before, yes? Prakrit is this kind of language where things develop over time. Just like you read Old English. It's thou shalt not and thee this and all the things. It changes over time. In Prakrit, it changes. So when we're applying these austerity of speech, we have to understand what it means. Quite often people will say something, but is that what they mean? Like people say, abhya ega, that means just now coming. But does that mean they're just now coming? No. So we have to understand from these. So we understand before we speak, we should consider these matters. This is one of the problems people have. They don't know the parameters they need to speak in, and they haven't thought carefully about what they are trying to get across. Like if we're speaking to people, we have to remember what is the point. That's why especially it's easy with a lecture. If we're going to read this verse, what should we lecture on? What is the point today? Speech, right. We won't lecture about plumbing. In plumbing school, that would be appropriate. But today we're going to lecture on the austerity of speech and how this should apply to our everyday living. And some of it goes along with this. We saw there were several things. Can someone name one of the 5 things mentioned? What?
Words should be very pleasant.
Pleasant. Okay, that's one. Only one per person. What's another one? Truthful. Okay. Pleasant and truthful. What else? What? Not agitating to others? Beneficial. Okay. Not agitating. What else?
Beneficial.
We mentioned that. What else? Based on scripture. You know, when Krishna speaks of Bhagavad-Gita, in almost the end, in the 63rd verse, he gives this idea of something we should use before we speak. He says, now I have given you more confidential knowledge than I have spoken before. He says, deliberate fully and do as you wish. So Krishna is giving the free will, but he's also giving us, it's called an informed consent. You have the consent to do what you want, but he's going to inform you that first you should understand the knowledge, which applies with this verse. We should understand, based on Scripture, what is truthful and what is pleasing, what is beneficial, and what is not agitating to others. By studying Scripture, we can understand this, and we can apply these. And that's why the principle there is talking about deliberate. Before we speak, we should have an idea of how we can get the point across. When we're dealing with people, what are we trying to do? That wasn't rhetorical. What are we trying to do dealing with people?
Convince.
What?
Convince.
That's one thing. What else?
Give them Krishna consciousness.
Even a simpler term, if they pick that up. What is it?
You want them to trust us, to believe.
Well, if we want to do all that, what should we show we are trying to do? Be what?
Attract them to the
Attract, but what are we trying to, how do we present the Krishna consciousness to them?
beneficial for them.
It's what?
Beneficial for them.
Beneficial for them, yes. We want to be helpful. Imagine it's a different thing if I say to you, you know what? I've been studying this Bhagavad-Gita, and I want you to follow this too because I like people to do what I'm doing. Or if someone says, I'm going through some problems in life. They say, you know, I've been through some of those too. And let me share something with you that's helped me and may help you also. We want to bring Krishna consciousness to them because it is beneficial for them, not because we want to convince them. That's true too. But why do we want to convince them? Because it's beneficial to them. Is it true? Not just because we like to convince people of things, because it is beneficial for them. So let me show you something that's beneficial to you. Because we find that Krishna is attached in that. See what Krishna said? Was he trying to convince Arjuna? Did he think, no, I want you to follow what I'm saying? He says, you know, deliberate fully. He says, but you can still do as you wish. This is where detachment comes in. Detachment doesn't mean we don't care about people. It means we're not attached to the result. Do we A, give Krishna consciousness because it's beneficial for them? Or B, do we force it on them because we like people to do what we want them to do? Which one? Force them. Is that a good way? Isn't it better to try to convince them to want it? No. If somebody wants to come to Mangal Artik, do you have to check on them? They just come, right? Forget we spent the time in the early days building temples. Now sometimes people come late for the Artik. You know what I noticed too? That it starts at the same time every day. Anyone notice that? Did anyone else notice? And when they open the door, you have another minute till they blow the conch shell. Then they blow the conch shell. There's another minute till the Artik starts. But still, sometimes people come late. So maybe they weren't convinced that they would get the whole benefit from it. But if we can make people understand that this is beneficial to them, then they will want it. Because if people want it, just like you see when someone like Vaisheshika is doing books, first he gets their attention, then he gets their interest. And by getting their interest, then he gets a desire, and then they take a book easily. When he was out here, I said, boy, these people all love you. He says, that's because I love them. So we see that if we have a caring attitude towards people, and we are thinking before we open our mouth, is it the truth? Is this going to be pleasing to them? Is it going to be beneficial and not agitating? And is it based on scriptural knowledge? We can deliberate fully before we say something. We see sometimes certain politicians will say something and then they apologize later. Well, I never should have said that. Well, I should have thought about it first. Isn't it true? Krishna is saying that. Deliberate. So if we're not sure what to say, what do we say? What do we say? No one has an idea? What?
We can ask the authority, somebody in the higher authority.
Well, first what do you do? First, what do you say? If you're not sure, what do you say?
Let me consult.
Yes, or you say nothing until you say, let me consult, let me check that out. You have to deliberate. Because you don't want to say something and then be like the politician says, oh, you know, I never should have said that, that was wrong. It's better to think, well, let me consider this. I may have to check some scriptures. I may have to talk to some authorities and, you know, consider it, deliberate, talk with others, work it out based on who you're talking to and what the circumstances is, because we don't want to say something and have to take it back. If we have to wait before we give an answer, that's okay. Krishna says deliberate. Deliberate may take some time. We don't want to blurt out something and then think, oh, I shouldn't have agitated them. Maybe that wasn't beneficial. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. When I was 3 years old, I put a teddy bear down the toilet and flushed it, and the water came everywhere. My grandmother was very upset with me. I said, I shouldn't have ought to have done that. But it's a little late once you've done it, isn't it? Yes?
Yes.
Better to consider it, deliberate first before you take the action. So when we're taking these actions, we have to consider what might be pleasing to one person and beneficial may not be to someone else. If someone came here for the first time and they says, wow, you know what I did? I went in the samadhi and I chanted 1 round. What do you say to them? What do you say? That's great. You're happy with them, right? Now what if I tell you, oh, I chanted 1 round yesterday? What would you say? What? What's that?
Only 1 round.
Well, you might want to think what's truthful, what's beneficial. You say, oh, is there something I can help you with? Because the goal is to get someone to chant more, but you want to figure how to encourage the person to want to do that. You want to say it in a beneficial way. You don't say, hey, stupid, how come you only chanted 1 round and I chanted extra rounds? Is that going to be helpful? Is it going to be beneficial? You can take something very wonderful. If I say, you know what, I'm going to give you 100 rupees because you're so stupid that you can't support yourself. And if you believe what I'm saying, you'll take the 100 rupees. Now do you want the 100 rupees? See, I can get you to refuse 100 rupees, but by it being an insult. But if I say, you know what, I got a special Tulsi leaf. It's just a leaf, but this leaf is very beneficial for you. And because I care about pleasing you, I want you to take this leaf. Now will you take the leaf? See, by presenting it properly, you can get someone to accept a leaf, whereas you can get them to refuse a 100 rupee note and a 500 rupee note, even a 2,000 rupee note. What do you have to do to get someone to refuse a 1,000 rupee note? You just show it to them and they don't even want to see it, yes? How much is a 1,000 rupee note worth? 0. How about 2 of them? Twice as much. If one is worth 0, 2 is worth twice as much. So, this is the point. We have to deliberate on these and see who our audience is. As we're talking with one person who has come for the first time, we want them just to see the deities. We get people to try it out. This is why in Laguna Beach, I sit in the front of the temple in the foyer area to meet people when they come, because not everybody in the world practices these austerities of speech. And if you go to some, we'll call the temple a church, because for all intents and purposes, it is a church, right? So you go to some churches, they look at you real funny, because you look like an outsider. What are you doing here? And even worse, you go other places, they talk to you for 5 minutes and say, now you want to join this? Whereas we tell people, come and try it. Come and see your deities, eat a little prasadam, chant 1 round with us, take this book home, understand the confidential knowledge and deliberate on it. We get them to try it. We don't say, our restaurant is the best restaurant. Well, come and try it and see what you think. We try to get people started easily. Prabhupada says we go in like a needle, out like a plow. Start with something easy. Like ask someone, have you heard of stress? Of course they've heard of stress. You start with something easy. You ask someone, are you from Vrindavan or somewhere else? Or something simple like, Aapko mandir kaisa laga hai? It's not a difficult thing for them to just say, oh, mein mandir acha lagta hai. They very easily will say that. Otherwise, why are they here? So what we're telling someone to chant 1 round, we just have them sit down, just do 1 round with us and see how you like it. And maybe a different instruction we're giving, that if someone's a brahmachari, they don't just get the instruction on how to do 1 round, they get training about how to wake up early, how to stay clean, how to study, how to chant, how to stay away from women, or if it's brahmacharis, how to stay away from men. They get trained how to do these. So what's pleasing and beneficial to them may be different. So we have to deliberate carefully so that we know that we're giving the right message to the right person. We have to understand this knowledge to do that. If someone is a grahasta who is attending the temple maybe every day or most days, we give them not the same kind of guidance that we would to a brahmachari. We don't tell them to sleep on the floor and never talk to a woman. That might make their wife angry. Yes? And someone who comes just once in a while, you wouldn't say to them, hey, where were you last week? Say, hey, we really missed you. It's so good to see you back here again. Because the goal is you want to make someone want to come. Not make them feel bad that they didn't come. So we want to think, how can I say something that's pleasing? If we call someone stupid, that probably is not pleasing, correct? Is that true? We want to think how we can be pleasing to someone. And this is our service to Krishna. Krishna there's only about 701 verses in Bhagavad-Gita. Not all of them are by Krishna. Some by Arjuna, a few by Dhritarashtra, a few by Sanjaya. We see the problem in not deliberating. Bhagavad-Gita starts out with Dhritarashtra is saying to Sanjaya, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do, being desirous of fighting? He's all nervous about the war is going to start. But he should have deliberated on this when Krishna came on behalf of the Pandus and was willing to negotiate with them. Shouldn't he have considered then that maybe the Pandavas will be a formidable obstacle? I don't go start a fight with someone and then say, oh, by the way, does he have a gun? And does he have friends who are supporting him? Shouldn't I find that out first? Krishna did this. When did Krishna try to find out the situation of the Kurus? You know, when he first did some investigation on that? When did he do that? When? Akrura. When was that? Way before. Right after what? Right after killing Kamsa. How long before Kurukshetra was that? 100 years? About? Yeah. So he didn't wait till the last minute and go, oh no, now what do I do? Dhritarashtra is saying, you know, what's going on? What about the Pandavas? Well, you should consider these things first. Deliberate carefully before we take action. So because there's only so many verses, this is something important about how we speak. We think of these things. When do I speak nonsense? When? When? Yeah, no, when is it suggested that we speak nonsense? Never. So first, if it's not truthful, then does the rest of it matter? Like I can be pleasing and say, you know what, there's a kilo of gold waiting for you in the restaurant. And you believe that that's beneficial, don't you? You would agree. And it's not agitating to you. But because it's not truthful, it has no meaning. So if it's not truthful, none of the rest of it matters. And just because it's truthful, like the 100 rupees may be beneficial to him, or 2,000 rupees. But if I'm so insulting about it, now does it become a benefit? Now they don't want it. Now people will even refuse money because you have insulted them to try to take it. So we have to present it in a pleasing fashion. When people do this with books, then people want the books. And when they want them, it's very easy for them to pay for it. This is why Prabhupada says we should sell them. Because if people buy them, that means they want them. And if they want it, then they'll read it. If you just give it to them, maybe they want it, maybe they don't. Say you give me a Coca-Cola. I may take it, but will I drink it? No, I don't drink the Coca-Colas. Stomach doctor says it's not good for my stomach, so I won't drink it. There's other reasons, but shouldn't you find that out first with someone? Oh, do you drink these Coca-Colas? Wouldn't you find that out first before so you find out things about people before you give information to them. We find this out that Krishna mentions in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita that there's 4 kinds of people who surrender to him and 4 kinds of people who don't. Now, if the goal is just to surrender and develop love of God, why do we need to know these? Why do we need to know that there's 4 different people? One person is in distress, one is in want of money, one is inquisitive, and one is in search of knowledge of the absolute truth. Why do we need to know this? Why? In relation to the austerity of speech, why do we need to know this? So that we can what? Yeah, it's just like Prabhupada says, if you're sick and you go into the pharmacy, the medicine you need is there, right across the street, right? But why won't that help you? You don't know what your disease is. Before you get a cure, first what do you have to know? What do you have to know from the doctor? What is the problem? Yes, you can't get a cure. I says, oh, I need a solution to my problem. What's the problem? Oh, I don't know. You have a solution? So first, we need to know what is the problem. And then we address it differently. If somebody comes in here in a brand new Mercedes and a beautiful wife and children and they're smiling, do you talk about how, oh, if you're in a miserable condition and lack of money, you should surrender to Krishna? No, you try a different avenue with them. If someone's crawling in starving and they're injured, do you say, oh, you came for knowledge of the absolute truth? You understand these things. Because the main thing is, like Prabhupada says, we go in like a needle, out like a plow. We start easily with people. That's why we convince people, just come visit us at the temple. Try chanting one round. Take a book home and read a little of it. We start it easy rather than saying, you need to join our temple here and become a brahmachari. If we said that to people when they walked in, how many would become? No, we'd have to start where it's easy. We find the examples of this. Narada Muni was good at that. Narada Muni one day was walking in the forest and he noticed something very curious. He dropped one. He noticed that there were some animals that were like half dead with an arrow in them. There was like a rabbit and a squirrel and a deer, and they're flapping around, dying slowly. And he thought, this is interesting. And then he sees this one man behind a bush with dark skin and like puffy hair and red eyes, and he has a bow and he's about to shoot, and Narada Muni says, hey you, what are you doing over there? A deer runs off, and he says to Narada Muni, you scared that deer away I was trying to kill. And Narada Muni says, I wasn't trying to disturb you. He says, but I have one doubt I need to ask you. He says, I noticed along the way several animals who'd been shot with an arrow, and they are suffering, they are dying slowly. Did you do this? He says, yes. He says, this is how I half kill them. This is the way my father did it and my grandfather did it. That makes it okay, doesn't it? Just like if you're robbing the bank and the police come, if you say, well, my father did this and my grandfather did this, they let you go. They take you home to stay with them. They have a nice big house for you to stay at. Yes, they do. It's called Tihar in Delhi. They take you to that place and they give you free meals and a free place to stay. And you can't leave. You check in, but you don't check out. You stay. So, Narada Muni asked him, he says, listen, can you just do me one favor? Can you just not half kill the animals? Can you completely kill them so they don't suffer so much? Now this doesn't sound like a good instruction. You wouldn't tell a brahmachari this, right? Like they give the different instructions. If you told a brahmachari, go and completely kill some animals. That's why the sage came along, and when he saw the king, he says, oh, you live forever. The prince, he says, you live forever. Because he's doing so many sinful things that when he dies, he's suffering. And he sees the brahmachari, he says, die immediately, because he's doing so many austerities, he'll go back to Godhead. And he sees the butcher, he says, don't live, don't die. Because while living, he's creating sins, and he dies, he's going to suffer for them. So the instruction has to be different. And he sees a saintly devotee, he says, you can live or you can die. Either way, it's okay. So it sounds like a strange instruction to tell him, just completely kill them. But the idea is you want to start with something simple. Just like when we're talking to people. Maybe you want certain people to become brahmacharis, get initiated, chant 16 rounds a day. But do you start with that? Or do you tell them, come to the Krishna lounge, come to the temple, come to the park where we're having a kirtan. Oh, come and watch us perform kirtan, and there'll be a meal at the end. Do we start with that? Or do we tell them, oh, we want you to give up everything, shave your head, and give $1 million? Is that a good place to start? No. Even if that's eventually what you want people to do. If you want people to do it, you have to do it in a way that's beneficial for them. That they feel is pleasing and that they're going to want to do this. So Narada Muni did this, and because he was pleasing, and because the hunter, called Magrari, the enemy of the animals, because he could see that Narada Muni had his best interest at heart. It's like Jayapataka Swami says in the Bhakti Vriksha groups, that we have to understand that people want to know how much we care before they care how much we know. If someone knows that you know they care about you, that means more than if I say, I know the Bhagavad-Gita and you should listen to me. Even if it's true, people won't listen to it. So Magrari the hunter knew that Narada Muni had his best interest at heart. We have to preach to people because we want them to advance. Get them started. And then he says, well, what else can I do? Then he says, well, now you can break your bow. See, then he went to the next step. We do this in stages. Just like if we meet someone at a temple, like if we have a Sunday program in temples and other places, best thing to do is make a friend with them and convince them to come back next week. Not try to explain to them the nature and joy in consciousness and Vedanta, its mortology and ontology, and convince them how their philosophy is all bogus. Convince them that they have a friend and that they should come back next week. So then with Magrari, he told him, he says, how will I support myself? He says, well, if you get a tulsi plant and you chant, I will send people from the village to come. And so he started doing that. And then when Narada Muni came back with his companion Parvat Muni, Magrari came running to see them, and he was jumping like kind of across the path. And Parvat Muni says, why is he doing that? And so Narada Muni says, my associate Parvat Muni wonders why you didn't just run straight. He says, well, there was so many ants, I didn't want to step on them. So he changed his consciousness. But Narada Muni didn't start by saying, I don't want you to kill any animals, including the ants. He started by saying something simple. I notice sometimes here when people come from Western countries, sometimes Indian people aren't sure what to say. But what can you say to them? What can you say? What? Well, what to start with? Welcome. Let them know they're welcome here. That's a good point. Let them, because people wonder, oh, did I go inside? Do I have to buy something? Or did I go in the wrong place? Oh, you're welcome here. Sometimes people are always afraid maybe they're not welcome. Or they're afraid we're going to shut the door and you don't get out. So he says, oh, you're welcome here anytime you want. It makes a difference when people say that. It's like I said to Gopal Krishna Swami, can I come stay a little while in Delhi? He says, you can stay for a day, you can stay for a week, you can stay for a month, you can stay for a year, you can make it your base and stay there for the whole time. Now do I feel welcome? It means I can come and go, not like, oh, if you're going to come, you better stay for years. Or you can come, but only one day. Now I know I'm welcome for either a short time or a long time, right? So you let people know this. You let them know that you are there for their benefit. We are preaching to people not to make ourselves feel good, but for their benefit and for Krishna's benefit. People can feel it. When you say, let me share something with you that's worked for me, they can understand that. So we just tell them welcome. Ask them where they're from. It shouldn't be that hard to do. And then again, when we see people that come from other countries, they may not know all the different Vedic standards. So we have to take that into consideration. We have to be just happy that we're here. Let them know where to take the shoes off. Let them know, but know how we're going to apply these principles and think of what I can say that's pleasing. Oh, I'm so glad you could come here today. You think of something that can be pleasing. Not like, oh, it's so good you hear that. What are you doing here? You can change the whole mood by someone comes wondering what's going on, and the first thing that's said is it's just like out there. It says, welcome, or leaving. It says, thank you, please come again, right? says, don't come back here, right? If some people have a mat at their door, go away, right? If we have a sign outside that says, go away, will we get more or less visitors? Less, right? So we have to learn how to practice these austerities of speech. We'll go around the room again, see if you can remember them. What is one of them? Which one? Beneficial. What else? Pleasing. What else? Yes? And what else? And scriptures? Did we mention not agitating to others? Is that 5? Which one of those are important? Number 1 and number 3? Number 2 and number 5? Or E, all of the above? You're sure? How do you know that they're all important? What? Why would Krishna have mentioned them if they're not important? We went over early, there's only 701 verses in Bhagavad-Gita. Krishna has condensed this knowledge. He's not adding extra things just to create filler, right? We see even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's such a big book. And even there, Krishnadas Kaviraj is saying, I have to tell this story in the short form in fear of increasing the volume of this book. So this book is already short. Krishna didn't put anything in just as a filler to add space. He put in only what was necessary. With so few verses, you have to figure, it's not like if he was told you need to come up with 1,000,000 verses in a certain period of time, and that's what the goal. He condensed it so that it's covered in just a small amount of verses. So, thinking of that point of deliberate is very important in this. Because before we say something, if we just say a few words to find out about someone, find something that's beneficial to them, that's better than going on and on and on, but not finding out what that person actually needs. So we should have this as a working awareness before we speak. Does anybody go on the internet? Did you notice that everything on the internet does not necessarily follow this austerity of speech? Anyone notice that? Yes? Or is if it's on, some people think if it's on the internet it has to be true. Is that true? No. I can make up a lie, but if I put it on the internet, that makes it true? People think that, though. So even some devotees think the earth is flat. And I said, that's an interesting theory, but 2 things. 1, the Bhagavatam says all the planets are round. And 2, I disprove that theory because when you fly in Emirates, you fly over the pole. And because the earth is smaller at the top, and because it's round, it's quicker that way than going around the middle. So they haven't deliberated on that before they open their mouth. They said some theory that's an interesting theory, but it has no basis in fact. It has no backing by the scripture. It has no backing by scientific knowledge. So why is it being said? And who's it going to benefit? If I tell you something about the shape of the earth that's not true, is that going to benefit anyone? No. Certainly wouldn't benefit the airline because they'd have to fly farther that way. So we have time for a question? Should we add some to this austerity of speech or take some out? Which one of those should we take out? Which one? Nothing? You can't take it out? Some people do though, don't they? Yes. Which one did you want to take out? No, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
I just had a question that
Yes.
I find it's easier to practice these austerities of speech in preaching when you're talking to new people,
Yes.
but it becomes more difficult sometimes in the association of devotees when familiarity is there.
Yes.
It becomes easy to speak, especially in a way that's maybe not pleasing or is agitating to others. So how can we...
Why, we just have to practice it, right? You know why I don't play cricket very well? Why? I haven't practiced it. No. You know why I didn't practice it? No, not knowing. That's one thing, but what particularly? I didn't allocate any time for it. I had no interest, so I didn't. So if I don't allocate any time to chanting, and I don't allocate any time practicing, thinking, how can I say something that's pleasing? I say, wow, you really said something nice in class. Or wow, you really seem to be chanting nicely. You think of something pleasing to say. Isn't that better than just going on and on with things that you say one thing that means something? It depends on the circumstance. Then when you know people are this way, you know they have your interest at heart, so you have to practice it. So what you mean is with random people, you say something good, but with your friends, you say things that are displeasing. If you think about that for a second, it doesn't sound like a good idea. Wouldn't it be better to think carefully of one thing you can say? Wow, you sure seem to have a bright smile today. You must be chanting well today. Or wow, you really seem to know this philosophy. Think of something you can say to uplift people. So many people can say negative things. We don't need to discourage. Can we say something that's beneficial and pleasing? You know, we don't necessarily need it, but it's nice to know that people care about us. So it says, hey, I'm your friend, and I'm here for you. So it's easy to practice, I think, when you see something, when you think, what can I say that would be beneficial for them? Wouldn't that be better than using 100 words? We think of just one pleasing thing to say. Right? Just like if there's a big rock is coming in, get on the ground now. That may be the most pleasing and beneficial thing to say. And if you have people's trust, then they take that. So we just have to consider this a little more. I think, well, I care about the random people, but I don't care about my friends and associates. I think, what can I say to them that would be? And then this is what we call like quality time. Instead of just going on and on about what Donald Trump did, we say something that could be beneficial to them. Because he takes up a lot of space in people's minds, right? But he pays you for that? He doesn't rent the space in your head? You don't get paid for that? So if we're doing something, there should be a payoff. It should make us more Krishna conscious or more happy, or we think, what am I going to get from this? So we deliberate and remember these ones, unless you don't speak to anybody. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.